So first of all, my name's Aaron Hoffman, and I'm the program development individual, coordinator of the province, and I'm just going to go over my various roles that I have with BC Hockey this year. The first being I work with the Player Development Committee to develop, implement, and revise development plans for the MHAs. I also work with Hockey Canada, the long-term development model for athletes, and liaise with the professional and national bodies in having our program reflect those needs. I create best practices for all divisions from recreation to high performance. I produce seasonal plans and best practices. I create monthly learning outcomes and skill development competencies for MHA divisions. I liaise with the male and female high performance programs and work for understanding for requirements for HB and provincial teams. I work with BC and Hockey Canada to develop enhanced clinics, presentations on hockey technical items, province-wide program delivery with considerations for unique circumstances with MHAs. I work with the strength and conditioning coach to develop off-ice nutrition, rest, exercise, and best practices, and attend provincial and national seminars. This is my first year in the role, and this is an ambitious task for me to get to. I've got great support in George Cochran over at the regional office of the Okanagan and the branch to help me along this course. And like anything, going through these means is a challenge, but something that I've totally wanted to take on this year and enjoyed the process thus far. I'm also going to be focusing in a bit on with the IP initiative with cross ice and novice half ice. I was just watching a program the other day, and they were talking to Austin Matthews, and they were talking, it kind of links both initiatives. When he was young, he was playing on a lot of small area ice back in Arizona, along with talking about the long-term development model, where he was associating his ability to hit the puck out of the air, both in the small ice circumstances, but also being able to be a baseball player. At the young age, I want kids not to think that they have to play this sport all year round. I want them to have fun. And the better job we do as coaches at this level, the more we're going to be successful moving forward with recruitment and retainment of athletes. So, specifically with IP, players will be playing on modified ice surfaces, and this maximizes the number of shots, passes, puck touches, with the emphasis once again on fun. BC Hockey and Hockey Canada has a number of resources and initiatives to educate coaches, parents, and players. We shift focus from competition with limited skill emphasis, where a few dominate, to practice development, focus on skill development, and aimed at making players more efficient with a higher hockey IQ. I'm also doing some coach facilitation this weekend. I ran into Corey Spring from Cranbrook Minor Hockey, and he was stating that over in Spokane now they've launched the cross ice initiative for a few years now, and what he's noticing with the kids coming up is that they're creating a great number of defensemen coming out of the Spokane area, and that goes right back, he feels, from the small area initiatives that they're doing with USA Hockey. The ATP program is what we put together last year, and this is a great resource to educate coaches and players with the adjustment to full ice hockey, going from novice to Atom. Like I said, I've gone over a number of details here and going into it. We're going to have, is it Colin that's going to be going next? Colin Kritma?
I don't know if he's quite ready, but I can jump in, and George can jump in on his behalf real quick.
Definitely, and if there's any other issues that you'd like me to bring forward, Michael, just send them my way.
For sure. I'll just touch on something really quick that Aaron mentioned, just on the area to find resources and what the actual mandate is. So after our AGM this summer, we changed our mandate for modified surfaces. So right now, as it stands, all initiation program level players must play cross ice. All novice must do cross or half ice. Obviously, we encourage them to do cross ice based on the analytics that have been discovered that sort of illuminate the facts that are listed on the website there. In addition, we've created a number of resources aimed at helping minor hockey associations, coaches, and administrators in answering questions about how to operate games at this level, including practices and games for that matter. We have a number of practice plans on here that are easy to access by just clicking that button that profile both IP and novice throughout the season. Aaron mentioned the Atom Transitional Plan. Now this plan is mostly geared for those in the major novice as they transition to full ice strategies required at the Atom level. As you go through this document, it'll outline the process and procedures to train your players or players on how to adjust to the core elements of the full ice game that we recognize, which are starting, stopping play, spatial awareness, which is D-zone and offensive zone concepts, rule adjustment in terms of offside and icing and maintaining game flow, so changing on the fly. We've included in this a number of practice plans, and this is just a rubric you can follow at the end of the major novice season to prepare your players to do these drills. And each drill here is associated with a video that links to Hockey Canada's free resource, which is the Hockey Canada Network, or Drill Hub, I believe it's called. And so you can look at the drill, read the description, and click on the video. As we slide further down here, you'll notice that we cover, what do I call? We call them sort of educational scrimmages for novice players, controlled scrimmages, whatever you want to call them. Basically, the goal here is you can have your players on full ice, but the emphasis is not on competition or a game. It's a real-time instruction that players can experience different positions. You want to have, we recommend having 3 sessions towards the end of the year at minimum. Referees are optional. There's no scores kept, no score sheets, minimal penalties. And you go through what the game on the full ice looks like with a number of coaches on the ice and on the bench. So these coaches will be charged with instructing on defensive zone, offensive zone play, started and stoppage of play, changing on the fly, all these sort of things. And we'll open our IP leads to give them ability to assist you with this. That's what their job is. But we want to have our Minor Hockey Association coaches reviewing this plan and making modifications as they see fit. Another resource we have on here pertains to the actual delivery of games at initiation and novice level, and that's under our best practices document. And you can view that on the resources site as well. And this sort of gives you a logistical outline of how hockey can work at the IP and novice level, given our mandate to play on a smaller surface, right? So it outlines the measurements, it outlines how it should look, it outlines how to use orders, we give you team structure recommendations, go through the development phase and the season phase for games and practices for both IP and novice. We have a skills inventory here which sort of outlines what learning outcomes should be for players at both levels. And then we touch on player evaluations, time clock. We go through everything you sort of need to know to run hockey at this level. And finally, we close it with information on where to buy the break divider and all that kind of stuff. The last thing I'll cover before moving on to George or Colin on how they've implemented it into their areas or some suggestions on that front is just for those of you that have arenas that are not NHL size, we do have a cross-ice variance request. Cross-ice variance request is used for those rinks that don't follow the standard dimensions. So all MHAs have to do is fill this out. It's on form stack here. We get this sent to us, and then we go over the dimensions and any of the supporting details and make sort of a maximum permissible measurement of the arena. The goal here is just to standardize the playing experience throughout the province. We don't want to have our players experiencing one thing one area and another thing another area. So I would encourage whoever's on this call to look at what we have for resources, determine what they require, and you know, we're always looking for feedback in terms of what is missing. So don't hesitate to contact us if there's something here that is not there.
Michael, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah.
When we peruse through this information as well, I don't know if you covered it, but there's a great deal on dividers or nets or the equipment used for those modified ice surfaces, and if you're able to buy them in bulk, so if you get a number of associations going in at once, you're going to get a reduced rate, which, you know, you can stretch your dollars a little bit more, whether it's the foam dividers that you need or the hard boards or the nets. BC Hockey and Michael, you put a great resource where people that are first time to this are able to look and see how they can get some equipment that's standardized for that age group.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Aaron. So I'll go to Colin. Are you online? Are you still?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect. Good, Colin. Perfect timing. So, Colin, if you could just talk a bit here on your role with minor hockey and how the Adam transition plan is played through at an MHA like Abbotsford minor hockey, which you're the executive director of, and then mention any patterns that you've seen or any emergent issues that you see at the grassroots level.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Like Mike said, Colin Kerma, I'm the executive director out in Abbotsford with Abbotsford Minor Hockey. I am part of the Adam transition work group that put the plan together, and you know, I think what was interesting is because I had the inside track being part of that committee, you know, out in Abbotsford, I was able to work with our hockey director and really do some unique things. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, I love how, you know, here with BC Hockey, we do things like web conferences and webinars and all these different things, because the reality and the fact is that technology is should be front and center with some of our learning tools and whatever else. In Abbotsford, we managed to pull off our Adam transition program with only 2 ice sessions for every kid. But what they did was they had one chalk talk session, they had a video session, and then what we did using some technology that a lot of the teachers are using in today's classrooms is Google Classroom and the Google product. And so we built a Google Classroom that went through, and you know, parents could hand their kid their phone and log into this classroom, and they could watch videos, Peter Puck explaining what an offside is, and a lot of various things like that. So what we found was the Adam transition program going from, you know, the cross ice or small area game type stuff to the full ice and learning those basic rules and, you know, where to stand on a face off. We actually found it was easier to teach the kids off the ice than it was on the ice. But I think it's important to be able to relate the off ice to the on ice as well. So that's a little bit about what we did in regards to the Adam transition plan. A couple things that I think were interesting in our unrolling of it this year were simply education of parents. Parents did not know, did not understand, and realistically, I think my recommendation, having been through it once this year, is to over-communicate to your people, be it emails, be it posting on your website, be it, you know, in our case, if I had to do it again, when we did our chalk talk session, I would have a parent session at the same time, where parents were explaining a little bit about the program and why we were doing it. And I think the parent education component is key to pulling off the program, because the reality is, an initiation and novice, depending on, you know, the zone or the district you're in, you know, you basically tell everybody, hey, this is how we're going to do minor hockey for the first 4 years, and then when you get to Adam, we say, oh, we're going to do it a little different now. So everything you learned and everything you knew for the last 4 years, you just pack it in and don't use. So I think it's important from that perspective that the communication and the parent education component is done very, very strongly.
Perfect. I appreciate that, Colin. Do you have anything else to touch on before I move to Jeff O'Keefe, or is that?
Yeah, no, I think the only other thing I would touch on, I know that coming, you know, my experience in the last, you know, 10 or 15 years has always been working, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be a paid employee, and a lot of the larger associations have gone that direction. But I think it's important for everybody to know as well that there's lots of good resources that the smaller associations that don't have paid staff can access. You know, a lot of the people on this call are part of that group, and there's a lot of good resources to help you. And I think the one thing that I would also add is simply that I think it's important for people to reach out to the neighboring associations, reach out whether it's your IP leads or people on the Adam transition committee or whoever else. And I'm going to make the assumption, Mike, you and George can be a conduit for that. And you know, if anyone ever wants to chat about Adam transition, I'm more than happy to spend a few minutes with another association. So I think it's I've always learned back in the day when I was going through the coaching program and doing the high performance 2 back in the day. Mike Babcock was my partner. The one thing I learned from him was the more you give, the more you receive. So it's usually a good thing to share all these ideas and not reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Colin, for making yourself available today. So,
All right, guys.
I'm going to sort of introduce Jeff O'Keefe. Jeff plays an integral role along with the other IP leads in the province. As Colin mentioned and as Aaron mentioned, these people are the conduits of information and truly the program champions in your area. They are versed on cross ice, half ice, and everything in between with regards to IP and novice delivery. They are regionally based, and sort of their expertise comes into play when they meet with minor hockey associations and facilitate parent presentations and sort of do Coach 1 seminars. So, Jeff, if you could talk a little bit about your role, what some initiatives you've done in the Okanagan, and maybe where to find the contact information on the website, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, thanks, Michael. So, like Michael said, my name's Jeff O'Keefe, and I'm one of the IP leads in the province. From my understanding, there's 8 or 9 of us, and I'm based in the Okanagan. So from Soyuz right up to Merritt and Kamloops in that area, and similar individuals like me are scattered throughout the other regions. So, basically, in a nutshell, my role is to liaise with minor hockey associations and to ensure that sort of logistics and the philosophical implementation of cross-ice hockey and in the initiation novice programs is done smoothly and with the player's best interest in mind, obviously. So what that involves is a lot of emails and phone conversations, but also in-person visits to rinks and things like that to answer any questions that MHAs have with regards to implementation or best practices and things like that. So I think Michael will show you eventually here where all your local IP league can be contacted on the website, and we all welcome any phone calls or emails at any time. So if you have questions about team size or ice rink dimensions, things, playing service dimensions, things like that, that's what we're here for. So please make use of us, I guess. One thing that sort of leading off of what Colin mentioned about the importance of parent education, that's another one of our roles as IP leads, is to be a part of parent meetings or minor hockey meetings to relay information from BC Hockey. And what we're finding is that's particularly important with last year with the implementation of the mandate and moving forward with this mandate this year, is to make sure that parents, coaches and parents are on board with and understand why this is being done and sort of what this means in terms of the development of their children in the initiation novice program. So this past week I had the opportunity to speak to Kamloops minor hockey parents, for instance. They mandated for all their parents that they were all initiation and novice parents were to attend this meeting, and they hosted it at Thompson River University in a beautiful lecture theater. There were close to 250 people there, and so it was a great opportunity to have all the parents in initiation and novice hear the philosophy and the rationale for why cross-ice hockey is being implemented and mandated, and for them to just understand why this is going to benefit the development of the child as a hockey player, as an athlete, and working towards lifelong healthy living in general. So, and this really goes back to when this sort of implementation was pioneered by Barry Raynard and Dawson Creek, where all parents, all coaches were mandated as well to attend a similar meeting, and their minor hockey system flourished, not just at the initiation and novice levels, but right as those kids moved on to next year, the parental involvement, the coach education, it created a beautiful system of support and just positive energy around the minor hockey system. So I think, from my understanding, Omaha has mandated that similar meetings for associations in the Okanagan, but I would encourage other associations to provide some sort of parent education in that regard, whether it be via video, things on your website, but ideally in-person meetings where an IP lead or even a head coach with the information from the IP lead can relay that information on the value of cross-ice hockey to make sure that it's understood why it's being implemented. Another part of the role of the IP lead is to facilitate Coach 1 clinics. So if you're not aware of it, any new coach, initiation novice is required to take Coach 1 training. It's a new course that's being introduced that sort of replaced, in past years it was Coach 2 that was required, or sorry, the past few years anyways, Coach 2 was required for anyone coaching a non-carded team, which was initiation right through the juvenile house or amended house. And unfortunately that course didn't necessarily address the needs of an initiation and novice coach or player. So Coach 1 training is specifically geared to those age levels, which so even if coach is trained in Coach 2 from a previous season and their status will be grandfathered in, they're still encouraged, like new coaches, to take the Coach 1 training because they'll probably get a lot more tools and understanding, again, of the philosophy, but also ways to develop initiation and novice players. So that's another one of my roles as IP lead, and similar to the other IP leads. Like Michael said, the best practices document, which is on the website, is a valuable resource. It gets quite detailed in terms of obviously ice dimensions and half ice versus cross ice, but also in terms of length of games, how to set up stations for practices, right down to team size and things like that. So that's a great resource for coaches, parents, minor hockey associations, just sort of understand what's best practice on how to implement cross-ice hockey. And one thing I was also going to touch on is just how to apply to host a Coach 1 training, Coach 1 clinic. There's a lot of them that have already been set up and are scheduled, but I can say for myself, at least in the Okanagan, that weekends are starting to fill up with seminars. So there's been a couple at least that have been declined. Host associations have been declined their times when they wanted to host them because there wasn't an instructor available because you'd already, like I or another instructor had already been booked. So if your minor hockey association is intent on hosting one, which obviously is a great thing to do, I'd encourage you to register for that. Go through the online system on BC Hockey's website. Apply to host a Coach 1 course as soon as possible because times are filling up, and obviously it's preferable to have one earlier in the season as opposed to later in the season because there's a lot of good resources for coaches at those levels that are typically individuals that are new to coaching and may not have may not feel comfortable with that situation. They may be the sort of the last person to put their hand up at a meeting or something like that, but gives them a lot of good tools to get started on the right foot. So yeah, so get involved with Coach 1s as soon as possible. The last thing I was going to touch on was just some of the feedback I've heard from different associations, and having gone through the cross-ice program last year, or the mandate last year, and for the most part, there was a lot of trepidation at the start and confusion around the rationale and why it was being done. But those associations that stuck with it, that did their best to adhere to the mandate and the rationale and the philosophy behind it, won those parents over, won those coaches over. So, you know, there's tons of stories of kids, parents saying about, you know, last year my kid barely ever touched the puck in a game. He wasn't having a lot of fun. This year he scored his first goal, and you'd see his, you know, smile from across the rink, that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of stories like that where kids are having a more positive first experience in the game, and that's a lot to do with why this cross-ice mandate was put in place, to make sure kids have a more positive first experience, to keep them in the game, and to ensure a better player development model. So yeah, how's that?
Perfect. That's a very thorough review of sort of the philosophy of the mandate and the importance of our IP leads in the community. And again, I encourage anyone that has questions on this and questions about this WebEx, questions on this enhanced service webinar, questions on the program, questions on the philosophy, contact any of these individuals here or the office, and we'll be more than happy to sort of answer your questions. We're leading the country in our development at the youngest ages, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do as a province in terms of implementing a fairly large change to minor hockey in a fairly short window of time. Obviously, it wasn't without its hiccups, but I think we're rounding the corner, and as Jeff said, we're getting a lot of people's opinions changed based on player experience, which is really the important thing to consider in all of this. That said, I'm gonna thank our delegates here, thank our panel, thank Aaron, and for coming in during a windstorm and whatnot, and I'll take it back to Bill Ennis for some closing comments.
Thanks, Michael. Just a couple of closing comments from me. First of all, thanks to everyone for attending tonight, and I understand that the weather's not great out there, and thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. The webinars are scheduled to be between a half an hour and 45 minutes of your time, and we've done that. We're about 33, 34 minutes in, so we're dead on sort of our schedule for you. And I hope you have the opportunity to, if you have questions about the program, info@bchockey.net is the most reliable place to send your questions, and then we can put guys like Jeff and guys like Mike and guys like George to get the expertise in order to answer your question, and or forward it to someone else who can answer your question. So if you do have any questions about this mandate, about the program itself, please let us know. The other thing is that the webinar series, like I said at the beginning, is about 12 or 15 of these over the course of the season. The next one may be of interest to you as well. It is scheduled for November the 1st, and the topic is goaltending. And the goaltending program and what we've arranged through our new player development committee in regards to goaltending. So that will be, the invitation for that one will be out shortly, and I hope you have the opportunity to join us for our webinar on the goaltending program. Michael, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that.
No, I just think you wait for the invite, and then hopefully you can participate in that one too. All the development ones are really good for sort of all members of minor hockey, coaches, administrators, everybody. It's very relevant and very topical to sort of your operations.
So in saying that, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great hockey season. I know we're sort of just getting started, and the kids are all on the ice and they're raring to go, and teams are made and events are happening, and it's a pretty busy and exciting time, and I wish you well with it, because we had an opportunity to have brand new players on the ice in Smithers just this last weekend, and what a thrill it is for them to be involved in a sport like this. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that, and how important this is to child development and development of the game as a whole. And thank you very much for participating in that experience for those young people. And I hope you come back and see another webinar, and hopefully we can help your coaching or your managing or player development initiatives as best we can. So thank you everyone, and we'll be signing off now.
Thank you.